Hey, if you hadn't hit that subscribe button yet, we would love to invite you to join the Para family. You can also follow us at theparapodcast on all social media platforms. Come on, come join the conversation. Hey, what's up? It's your boy Joe Hinton again. We back again on the Para Podcast. We got my lovely wife.
I'm Candace. Hey y'all, what's up?
What's up, man? So look, we just recently launched the Para Podcast to you all, and we just want to let you know that Para Podcast is all about talking about the spheres and domains of life that we may not feel are central to faith, like those spheres and domains that stand next to faith, right? That's what para is, to come next to, right? To stand alongside. So we talk about those areas of life that we may not feel are centered to faith, but they're so critical. In fact, they are an integral part of a holistic faith-filled life, right? So we know there's the area of government, there's the area of entertainment, finance, and business, media, all these areas. But if you follow scripture, the first institution that God put in place was the family. So we decided today, man, we're going to talk about our story and what made us decide to be a family, like how we got to this place to be family,
Yeah.
So who going first, man?
Who
going to tell this story first? Because, the thing is, like, every time we tell the story about, how we met, how we got together, stuff like that, there's like, there's variations. There's like slight differences on what we remember.
Yeah, that's true.
So who do we want to tell this story first?
You have the floor. So
you know
I'm
what?
gonna let you go first.
Ladies first. Ladies first. I want to establish to the audience that I am a perfect gentleman.
Okay.
Perfect gentleman.
So we're
Go
switch
ahead.
it up this time.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I'm actually gonna start with our story and talk a little bit about myself as an individual and where we were when we met. We got married super young. So we met while we were both in college. I was 19, 20 when we first met each other.
Youngin.
And we were super young. And when we met, I was in college and studying music and also started working to pay tuition and stuff like that. And so we ended up working together at a bank, and that's how we met each other. The time before I met Joe, my life was pretty chill. Like, I was focused on school. I was the first, I'm the oldest child in my family, so I was the first to go to college. And so everything was just new and different for me. It was an interesting season. It was probably the hardest, most difficult, most challenging season of my life at that time, as far as just the level of growth and development that I was experiencing through studying music and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up in church, and growing up in church, having a relationship with God as a young kid shaped a lot of my perspective. It shaped a lot of my desire. I knew one day that I always wanted to be married. Like, I was a little girl that was playing with dolls with me and my sister together, and we were imagining what our weddings would look like. And we knew we wanted to be married. We knew we wanted to have kids. Like, from an early age, I knew that's something that I wanted. And coming into a relationship with God at an early age, I always felt like being married was a part of my life and a part of my purpose. Like, I always expected to have a husband one day and have kids one day and all that kind of stuff. And so at the time that we met, the church that I grew up in, I had actually taken a break from.
Now, and make note of that now. Take a break.
I decided.
Take a break.
I took a break. I decided at about 18 that I just felt like I needed to do something different. I felt like I wasn't growing as much as I would have hoped for at that season. And so, I decided to step away from church.
Be a heathen.
I was. I
You
was.
see how she tried to say it all nice? I decided to step away so that I could explore the Lord on my own path,
It
my own journey.
I can't say that was my intention to pursue God on my own path. It just resulted in that.
Mm,
And
mm,
so
mm. Okay.
and so at 18, pivotal age, I graduated from high school, go off to college, and I'm not in church anymore. Now I'm the kid that grew up in church. I was in church like almost every day of the week. So needless to say, that was a major shift for culture and routine, all that kind of stuff for me. And I did take time to explore my relationship with God for myself. And for 2 years, I was embarking on the new journey of being in college. I decided to get into a relationship that ended up being a long term kind of relationship, lasted a couple years. Um, and those were my focus: family, school, and dating. And that was my life at the time that we met.
Okay, so this break and this exploration of God on your own terms translated to a focus on school, uh, family, and dating.
Mm-hmm.
Where was God? It's a missing piece here. It's
he
a missing
was
piece here.
he
It's
was
a
leading me and guiding me to not do the things that I was choosing to do.
yeah, yeah.
He was supposed to
Okay.
be my priority, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was prioritizing myself and my own desires in that season. So that's the life that I was living.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to understand,
Yeah.
this prescription about our self discovery,
Yeah.
of the Lord. Okay, these breaks we take. All right,
Yeah.
all
So,
right.
at the time that Joe and I met, I started working at a job, working.
Hold on, you about to skip the best part now. I
For,
mean, you didn't tell these people how you grew up a hood princess too.
See, this is not my. That's not my narrative. That's
Hood
your
princess.
That's your description of my life. That's not
Listen,
how I would describe my life.
she was like homecoming queen, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior
Not
year.
true. Not
You
all those years.
know,
That's not true.
homecoming
I
queen.
was just prom queen. I was just prom
What
queen.
other forms of queen were you, babe?
I was just prom queen. You were
Okay,
putting extra on it.
hood princess. Most coveted jewel in Hampton, Virginia. The Hampton Roads area. But continue.
Anyway, this is
Mm-hmm.
my story.
Yeah.
So I would say, I started working at a bank, and um, the short story is, I'm dating, I'm in a relationship, and I'm really not like I'm kind of in my own space. I have a relationship. It's a relationship that I'm asking God to bless because it's something that I decided to go into on my own without God's permission. And so I'm in the season of just trying to figure out, is God going to allow me to live the life that I'm building right now? And so that's where I was in my relationship with God. And that's important because it really is the foundation of, it's just a big part of a huge defining moment for me in my walk with God. And, that was an intersection when Joe and I met each other, working at a bank. Joe comes in for an interview for a position that's open. And when he comes in, I noticed that. I just noticed him. I'm like, he just seemed like a handsome guy. He had a strong personality. He seemed very business. Like when I overheard him talking to the managers and stuff, and he just seemed like very sure of himself, very confident. And I just thought he seemed like a sturdy, like strong guy. Fast forward over time. So he gets hired, and I find out that he is actually the best friend of the cousin of a really good friend of mine. And when I found out that they were best friends, I kind of decided, like, okay, I could be cool with this guy because his best friend was someone who was just a really good dude and had a really good reputation. Like, I was like, okay, I have the mindset like birds of a feather flock together. So, he must be a decent dude if he's best friends with, my friend's cousin.
Gang, gang.
And so, um, over time, working together, we get to talking and having different conversations. And I start hearing an undertone in our discussions. Like there's something deeper than just like the words on the surface. And I'm like trying to figure out what is this? What is it about this guy that I'm kind of picking up on or sensing? And it's different than what I typically have experienced in like connecting or meeting people.
So what I think I hear you saying is you were like picking up on the vibes that I was him and not them. Is that what we're, you know?
Yes, that is true.
Okay.
But
But you're picking up that there was more than met the eye.
yes,
Is
that's
that
that's
is that what?
exactly what I'm
Okay.
saying. I'm saying that's true, and I'm
Okay.
saying
Okay.
I would have learned over time in the future. I would later learn that you were him and not them, right?
Okay.
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 So I didn't realize that in the moment. I just was trying to figure out what's up
Like
with
there
this
was something
guy. There's
different.
something different.
Okay.
And one day we got into
Hold on, before you're about to get into like
no,
the
no.
like okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
You
ahead.
said I could go first.
Well, what I want to do, what I was thinking before we get into like the moments that became the catalyst
Mhm.
for us to, begin engaging more,
Mhm.
I give a little bit of background about me
Oh,
and
so
what brought me up
you're
to
gonna
that
come in?
point,
Okay.
and then we can really get into the good stuff. Is what I was
Okay.
thinking. But go ahead. But
Okay.
don't get into the,
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
I'll
All
give
right,
a
I
little
got you. I
background. Yeah.
got you. So, I ended up. We were having a conversation, and he ended up mentioning that his father was a pastor, and that's when I realized, oh, I get it. Like the undertone of what I'm picking up on is that it's like his words are seasoned with salt. Scripture says like it's something about like I can hear something that I understand even if he's not saying the words out loud. It's just at the time, I don't know how I would have described it, but I just knew there was an undertone to how he spoke. There was an undertone and like there was something special and unique about how he would communicate.
So just for the clarity, I mean, although my dad's a pastor, I'm not one of these dudes that like, you got some of these church dudes that they just walk around everywhere,
Well, yeah.
using church
Yeah, it wasn't like
colloquialisms
that.
and they're talking like they're Reverend Dr. Bishop,
Yeah.
they got a sweat handkerchief with them,
Yeah,
man,
yeah,
going,
yeah.
nah, I'm not one of them
It
now.
wasn't
It
like
wasn't
that.
that
I
by
wouldn't have
any
liked
means.
you if it was like that.
Yeah,
Like you were
in essence, I wasn't square. I wasn't
You were
lame. I
cool.
was.
Yeah, you were a cool dude. You
you
you were a
know.
cool dude. You were on
Yeah,
your business, and you were very articulate, but it was the spirit.
I wasn't corny, but it was the
You weren't. It
spirit that
was
was
the
underneath.
spirit of like underneath and behind your words that I was
Okay.
picking up on, and I didn't realize that at first.
Okay. So
Uh,
it wasn't that not that I would be ashamed to, but I wasn't quoting scriptures or nothing every 5 seconds or anything like that.
Nah, no,
Okay.
it was. I couldn't. If you were quoting scriptures, I think I would have been able to more readily identify. Oh, that's the thing, because I can
Mhm.
relate to that. I can, like, I know I'm familiar with that. But because that wasn't your mo, I was like, oh, there's something different about this dude. I can't put my finger on what it is.
So while I wasn't quoting scriptures, the essence and the principles of the scriptures was sprinkled. It was sprinkled, inside my essence.
Yes, I said season with
Yeah, in my
salt. Yes.
vernacular. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And so I I remember talking. I would talk to my friends. I would talk to my boyfriend at the time. Like, hey, I met this guy. He's super cool. You know, um, it just seems like a dope person. Like, I think we should, get to know him and hang out and stuff like that. And I think I'm gonna stop there
Yeah,
and
yeah,
give you a
because
chance to
yeah,
catch up.
yeah, because I feel like even though you mentioned you had a boyfriend and stuff like that, because we're talking about my essence and stuff like that, it can get lost and it can feel like I was in there trying to
Yeah, no,
put
I
us
need
in
to.
so
I
let's
got
yeah,
you.
yeah,
I
I'm gonna
got
give
you.
the background. So look, I grew up, you know in Atlanta, But at this time period, I was in Hampton, Virginia, because I went to the illustrious Hampton University. Real HU. And Candace is what we would have called a local
Yes,
at
because
that point.
I am from Hampton Roads. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing. I mean, it shows just how genuine of a person I am. Because there are those that go to Hampton that says you don't do the locals. But me, I'm like, no, we receive all great people. You know what I'm saying? So, but prior to getting to Hampton, grew up in Atlanta. Um, over time, you guys probably hear all types of elements to what led me to Hampton Roads and to
Mhm.
Hampton University. But grew up son of a pastor. Um, you know, because I grew up being raised steeped in church, um, groomed to do things in the ministry church space, heavily indoctrinated, by my pops. Like, I'm biased to me, of course, but I feel like I always was a cool dude. But at the same token, the type of things I was thinking about and aware of made me very intentional about like my interactions with people and dating and girls and all that type of stuff. So I had girls and things that I dealt with, when I was in like middle school, high school, stuff like that. But my thing was like, hey man, there's a certain set of qualities that we're looking for to ultimately be a wife. If a person isn't, checking off those boxes, or if I'm not even in an age range to be, operating at that level of seriousness with it, it's like, what are we doing, right? So, I just kind of focused on just being cool and building healthy friendships and stuff and having fun along the way, that type of thing.
Mhm.
And but when you get to college and you go to through different seasons and stuff, I finally, had me a little girlfriend, man, my freshman year. And man, I love this girl, man. I love this girl. You know, she was a senior when I was a freshman. The old ones always did. They always did like me, but and but man, this girl broke my heart, man. I was working full time and doing school full time, paying my way through school, so I would do classes all day, and then I would go off of campus and I would work, and I barely had much time. But the only other time I had, I would spend it with her and stuff like that. And now in hindsight, I realized that she there might have been some other things she wanted, but then she was on campus being exposed to all types of other things. So, somewhere along the way, there was some divide, right? That although I really loved her, and I believe she cared for me, but something went awry. So she just switched up on me, right? So, I went from that and a little bit of heartbreak, to say, well, you know what, man, you know what, you know what, you know, we're gonna just have a little fun out here. We're gonna play the field a bit, And so I did that for a little bit of a season, but the undertone of it was I always knew the truth and I knew what I was really looking for. And I had a deep relationship with the Lord, but I veered away from that a little bit, just having a little fun in college. And some things can get a little out of hand, but I believe the Lord, what I'm saying, had me on a short rope. So I had a little window of time to where he was having too much fun. But then I felt a huge tug from God, and I got back in church, and I just got super focused, and I just stopped dating and stopped, even interacting with young ladies, in very close, intimate, up close ways, and just was just focused spiritually, right? So I was in that state for a couple of years by the time I met Candace, right? So at this point, oh man, I'm back locked in. I'm serving faithfully at a church. I'm a musician and a worship leader there. I mean, I'm just on my square. spiritually. I mean, I'm super locked in, right? And I had a particular job for quite some time that was really affording me to be able to pay for school because that was my main focus. But I lost that particular job, so now I'm looking for a job because the job I had before, I was making lots of money. It was affording me to be able to pay for school out of my pocket cash every semester up until this point, right? But I lose that job. So now I'm searching for like, man, what other type of job can I get that at least will pay me decently? Because all I had was like another year or so in school to finish out. And so I go to my best friend, the same best friend she spoke of before, and he's like, "Hey man, I just started this job at a bank. You know, it's these little banks that were in WalMarts at that time, Walmart stores." He said, "Man, they're paying pretty decent. I think they got some openings up here." I said, "Oh, okay, man, cool. Like, let me go apply." So I go apply at the local Walmart bank close to the university, kill the interview and stuff. The manager tells me, "Oh man, you'd be awesome. Like, we think you're amazing. We'd love to have you on the team. Only problem is, we don't have any openings at this particular location."
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Oh man, we we're gonna try to get you in because I think we have some openings in the next location in the city right next to that city that branch was in. That city was Hampton, but the next city was Newport News.
Mm-hmm.
Newport News, it's like, I don't know, 15 minutes away from Hampton
Mm-hmm.
and Hampton University."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, "Oh man, I gotta, drive all out the way." Then of course I was, looking forward to, working with my homeboy, that type of thing. So I come back to him and I say, "Hey man, like, man, they told me they don't have any more openings here. They're gonna send me down to the Newport News branch or whatever." And my man says, "Man," but he said, "Well, hold on." He said, "Hey man, man, if they're sending you to the Newport News branch, man, hey man, I'm telling you, there's a girl down there. You gonna like her." Right? And man, when he said that to me at the time, I was so locked in spiritually and not focused on relationships or anything like that. I was like, "Oh man, whatever." I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good, bro." Right? So I go down. I do one more little interview with the managers of that particular location so they could solidify everything, and they officially hired me. So, I come, I start, I meet everybody, including Candace. And of course, I observed she, is a beautiful girl, but I just wasn't focused on that at all. I was just super
Mm-hmm.
focused spiritually, and just locked in. And like I said, I had stopped dating and dealing with girls for a couple of years at that point. So I was like super, super, super focused, super locked in, just focused on my spiritual walk. And she of course told me she had a boyfriend. So even the more, it was like all respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I just dealt with her as like work friend,
Mm-hmm.
and kept it at that.
Yeah.
Is
Y-
that where you
y-
want to jump
Yeah,
back
yeah,
in? Yeah,
yeah. I was
okay.
gonna say we weren't even like I knew there was a friendship and I knew there was a connection there, right? When I talked about I think that's something different about him. Think acknowledging your friend, like in the fact
Hmm.
that he's a cool dude too. No, he's a good guy. I'm like, okay, he's got to be a good dude. And then, we were such friends to the point that we actually did a double date. You know,
Yeah, yeah, but see, you skipping some of the good stuff. You skipping some of the good
what
things.
I
Yeah, you skipping the good stuff because that happened after the major catalyst.
did it.
Yes.
I
So
thought
let
that
me.
was
It's my turn.
before.
It's my. Let me go
Yeah,
ahead and
you
get
go
us in
ahead
there.
then. I thought that was before.
So she has a boyfriend, and I'm not interacting with her any more than I'm interacting with anybody else at the branch initially.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're working, you talk to your coworkers, stuff like that. I remember the first time we got into a much deeper conversation. I said something disparaging about Beyonce.
And I was not
And she
having it.
wasn't having it. She was, I think she was one of the first Beehive members, what I'm saying, back then. And it wasn't that, like, listen, Beyonce, GOAT, So by no means was I, speaking against Queen Bee from a perspective of her skill
Mm-hmm.
or her impact to the world and the industry, and all that she is. It was just at that time period. I'm trying to remember which album was out at that time period.
Um,
At the most, it was
well,
Dangerously in Love,
no,
or
no, it was dang, I don't know why I can't think of it right now. I can see the picture, the cover in my
the
head.
one where she had
No,
the
that's
glitter.
Dangerously in Love. It
Is that
wasn't
what
that.
that?
It was after that.
It was after that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it
Well,
up.
the basics, and I don't want to get us derailed. This might get me, if I go too far, this might derail this whole thing. But the basic sentiment is I was saying like, oh man, Beyonce is such a powerful person that I feel like the type of topic she could hit, the type of influence she could have. On just the world as a whole, let alone women. I felt like there was a higher level at that time period that she could tap into, and her influence and the type of topics she hit and all that type of stuff. And oh man, like, Candace and another lady at the brand, she just, oh man, they just jumped in on that, So I actually feel like that didn't even put me on a good foot, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah, that's true.
with Candace
That's
or
true.
it
I
or
was
a couple
like,
of the
what?
women of the branch. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Shut up, we don't want to hear what you're talking about, that type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And but we continue, to just be cool. So that sparked us always just having different conversations and debates and
Yep.
stuff like that, right?
Yep.
And through that, we start sharing more details about each other and our backgrounds, and that's how I think she found out, my dad was a pastor and all that type of thing. But it took me a while for something to dawn on me, like, you know, once we started talking about things, I'm a pretty communicative person, so I'm sharing different things and being cool, all that type of thing. And then one day, I'm talking to her and it hits me like, hold on, like I've shared all type of stuff about me and my background and all that type of stuff. And you really haven't told me anything for real
No.
about you. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So I say that to her. I said, well, hold on, man. We're not even friends for real. Because I said, man, I've told you all type of stuff about me and my background or things that's going on. And you barely have told me anything about you, right? And she was like, yes, I have. We're friends. We're friends. I'm like, nah, man, we not no friends, man. I don't even really know nothing about you like that for real, right? And in the middle of me saying that, a customer came. So I say, oh man, okay, whatever, man. Let me get up here and help this customer. And I stood up to help the customer. Now, this is where I gotta, give a little bit of background. Told you my dad is a pastor and all that. Grew up in church, was always being like trained and imparted to and all that type of stuff since a little kid. I mean, I can't remember a time, that my dad wasn't like teaching us scriptures and the word, keeping us at the kitchen table all day till you're about to fall out of the chair, sleep, grilling you about the Bible and all of that, right? But another nuance is that ever since I was a little kid, I've always had like a prophetic, gift in my life to where, I could hear from God and he'll share things with me about people and things that are around me. And it's a gift that's been active in my life for a long time. And I had been cultivating for quite some time, right? So, this fast forwards up to this moment to where, well, when I stood up to go help the customer, I heard God immediately start telling me things about her and about her family. So at that point, me and her had never talked about anything super deep spiritually or got very religious or anything like that, I didn't know whether she had any form of a church background or, was just a complete heathen or what, She just was a nice girl that, we worked together, all that type of thing. I help the customer. And then when I come back, I say to her, hey, I don't really want to freak you out or anything like that. But like, there's some things that I feel like God shared with me that I want to share with you if you don't mind. And so let me throw this out here because to me, this intersects with what we were talking about earlier about like just being weird. Like sometimes, people who practice faith, there's a version of that, that even if a person feels like they have gifts and things that one may deem a little bit more charismatic or whatever, that means they feel they have to express that in a very weird, charismatic, non-relatable way,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I don't personally believe that. you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
I believe that if you have gifts and things that should be serving people, it can be presented in a very down to earth, very relatable way, and all that type of stuff. So
Mhm.
once again, prior to then, although my faith is an integral part of every aspect of my being, and it comes out, and I may never quote a scripture, but the principles of the
Mhm.
scriptures is coming out in my principles, in my standards, in my perspectives, all that type of thing, right?
Mhm.
So shared she can in hindsight see that she was already kind of picking up on, okay, there's something different. But this was the first moment of a stark,
Mhm.
like uh, you know,
Yeah. Like a very clear, like, oh man, this is God. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, because I had not already formally expressed to her or introduced anything very strongly spiritual or religious, I came in kind of apologetic and delicate about it, wanted to make sure whatever I said to her was something she could receive. And, I didn't want her to be like spooked or freaked out or weirded out. And we were in the middle of a bank branch,
Mhm.
it's not even like the bank branch was large. Like if
Mhm.
you've seen these little branches in stores and Walmarts, imagine, well, if you're in the southeast region, your little SunTrusts or your little, you know,
Mhm.
PNCs, or maybe some of you guys have seen these little wood forest banks. It's a very small little branch. It's like
Tiny.
a teller desk with maybe 2 to 3 teller stations, and then maybe 2 to 3 maximum side little desks,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So it wasn't a whole bunch of big space.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure if I was too excited and charismatic about it, the cashiers that's ringing out bread and cereal would have heard everything I said, right? So
Yeah, true.
I tried to keep it really low key, and I just began to share with her, at that time, I got the inclination that she was a very gifted, talented person who was living a pretty good life.
Mhm.
But there was some key things that God desired for her, and He wanted her to reprioritize Him. And first of all, it was up to her whether she wanted to just live what could be a good life or a great life, right? And I began to share that I sensed that if she were to refocus her life on God, that it was God's intent to make her instrumental to the world around her, to her family, to all types of things in her life, because there were some great things that God has for her in those realms. But it was up to her, right?
Mhm.
So I shared that with her, and I also shared with her that there's some. I sensed that there was some things that she was going to have to make some hard decisions about, and like things that she may be holding on to, and different things like that that she needs to make some decisions about. I had no idea what was going on in our life at the time. That's
Yeah.
just what
Mm-mm.
came to me. I
Yeah.
shared it with her and left it at that. So, well, while I was sharing this with her, I mean, she just started crying in the middle of the branch,
Mhm.
so she's snotting in tears, like, oh, right?
Mhm.
And so I say to her, well, listen, man, if you really want to focus on, getting your, walk back with God, focus and on track, man, I have an awesome church you can come to.
Mhm.
And once again, she had told me she had a boyfriend. So I said, hey, listen, you and your boyfriend,
Yep.
if you guys want to link up with me, man, we can hit up a service on a Sunday or a Wednesday. Just
Mhm.
let me know, when your schedule is good, we can make it happen.
Yep.
And I followed through
Yes, you
too.
did.
Like
You did.
maybe a week later,
Mhm.
her and her boyfriend, we all linked up. I don't know if you all jumped in my car or I jumped in yours, but we all went to church together, is
Mhm.
the bottom line, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
We all went to church together. Um, Shortly after that, we then all went out on a double date.
Okay, so it was
You know
after
what I'm
that.
saying? It was
I thought
after
it
that. It
okay.
was you two, and then another mutual friend, which interestingly enough turned out to be the cousin of my best friend that Candace grew up with, right?
Mhm.
Candace is 2 years younger than me. So
Mhm.
Candace and this young lady, who happens to be the cousin of my best friend, they went to high school together
Yep.
and they were always battling each other for
We were not battling.
first place and runners
We
up
never battled.
for, homecoming
We
queen
never
and,
battled. That was my
prom
girl.
queen and all this stuff, right? And so after I had, taken Candace and her boyfriend at the time to church and stuff like that, we caught up a couple times. And I think it was her boyfriend that asked, like, hey, man, you ain't got your lady or something, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, hey, yeah, man, I'm just looking for the right one, you know what I'm saying? Looking for a quality, chick, somebody that's not, weird or, just on other stuff. That's just like a quality person. And I think through a series of events, I don't know who thought of her as an option, but somehow she came up
Yeah,
in
I don't remember.
discussions,
I don't remember, but
and somehow we
we all went
coordinated
out.
it, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yep.
And all went out on this date.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I actually had met my best friend's cousin not too long before that.
Mhm.
Really beautiful girl,
Gorgeous.
really beautiful heart,
Yep.
really beautiful spirit.
Yep.
Years later, I came to find out the only thing that sabotaged that was my best friend behind the scenes. Just he just blocked that
Not having it.
altogether, and I didn't know it until years later. So what this culminated into is somebody orchestrated us to go out on a date. And because I had met her before, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, no, she's a beautiful girl. It's like real
Mhm.
cool. You never know how it'll go. But then we go out on this double date
Mhm.
and she is acting super weird doing the whole date. I mean, very weird,
Yeah.
very kind of like guarded and standoffish and, different things. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what
What
is going on?
happened?
Like, what happened? And I'm thinking, well, why did you come on this date if you're going to act like that, So
Yeah.
after we finished going on this date and we dropped her off, we three, Candace, her boyfriend, we sat around and was like, what was going on? Like, what happened? Like,
Right.
was that weird to you? Right? And we all agreed that it was weird. Something wasn't
Yeah.
right here,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatnot. And so yeah, man, we ended up, going out on this double date and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I know you probably want to tell a little bit more of some of these components, but from there, me and Candace just continued to be friends.
Yeah.
And what happened was Candace started getting really focused on her spiritual life.
Mhm.
And so she would be coming to church with me at
Yeah.
times.
Yep.
She started serving on the worship team with
Yep.
me because we both sing
Yep.
and are musicians and stuff. So we were hanging together all the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't flirting with her, coming on to her, none of
Mm-mm.
that.
Yeah, and that was the point. Like we, just talking about how much we were friends, and we weren't even looking at each other in like a romantic way at all.
Yeah.
Like, we just it just wasn't even like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now, I'm gonna let you because you're probably gonna tell the evolution of, what occurred with your boyfriend before, we started our journey
no, I
and all
wasn't.
that.
I was actually gonna backtrack for a second.
Okay.
Because I was gonna say, go back to a couple things you said that I think are valuable. I mean, I think the conversation in general is valuable, but I don't know why, but I think it's important to know that if you have spiritual gifts to not be weird and just be cool about it.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought that was a really good point that you made.
yeah.
Because for me, had you been weird, I would have been okay with that because I grew up in church and I grew up with in a very charismatic environment, so it wouldn't have bothered me. But while you were taking that customer, God was preparing my heart to receive something. So I already expected, like, I don't know what's about to happen, but I kind of sense God's presence and I know like my heart is open. So I'm just gonna, kind of be ready. And
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
yeah.
So, because I didn't say that because I went on to other pieces.
Hmm.
What drew us closer to each other was that moment.
Right.
We went from just being general,
Right.
we weren't even truly friends. We were like work friends. The
Yeah.
person you gotta talk to and trip out
Yeah.
with while you're at work, but y'all don't got each other's phone number or nothing like that. You don't catch up after work,
Right.
none of that. You know, it's
Yeah.
just like, hey, what's up? And you trip out at work. You know,
Right. Yeah.
and but that moment of exchange took our relationship to a deeper
It
place,
did.
and it wasn't even romantic in nature.
Mm-mm.
It was actually spirit in nature
It was.
first,
It was.
right?
Yep.
And I could tell you, like, from my perspective, and this is critical to the evolution of our relationship once it did get to a romantic place, I immediately felt the sense of responsibility for you.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Because for God to put that on my heart and for me to share that with you, I've always, just from a faith perspective in general, when it pertains to like serving people, connecting with people, trying to introduce people to God and, you know, a relationship with Him, let alone when you talk about being used in like a prophetic way,
Mm-hmm.
well, that makes me feel a responsibility and a sense of assignment
Mm-hmm.
to that moment and the person
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, I might have an inclination to be used in that way for.
Mm-hmm.
And because of your reaction too, to where I could clearly see it hit right
Mm-hmm.
home
Yep.
on something that you needed,
Mm-hmm.
and it was going to be instrumental in you just really you know, revitalizing your faith,
Mm-hmm.
then I felt a sense of assignment to like really help you
Yeah.
and be there for you and help support you getting that going
Yeah.
back. So I felt responsible for
Yeah.
you. So from that moment on, it was like any way I could help her
Right.
to,
Right.
you know, get connected, you know, and, you know,
Yeah.
encourage her, you know, just minister to her really,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
That's what it came down
it's what
to.
it came down
Yeah.
to. So there was like a immediate deep care there,
There
you
was.
know,
There
right?
was. And there was. And trust, because
Yeah.
I am a guarded person, and I was a guarded person at the time, because I felt like at that point it was almost like no new friends before no new friends was a thing, you know? Like I had my guard up
Oh
because I
man.
had relationships that were meeting certain needs of mine. You know what I mean? So we were cool and I cared, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like hadn't let you in. You know what I'm saying?
That's nice for saying she didn't care.
No,
Listen,
I
listen,
did
because
care. No,
Candace,
I did care.
listen, for people that actually know Candace, right? First of all, Candace is like, she is so sweet. She's just the best ever. She's amazing. She's so gracious. And she is, right? But this is because she's so sweet. This is her version of I don't care. Meaning like I know you, but you're not deep in my heart or somebody that I got my man, I got my little nucleus in my circle. We little work friends, but that's it. you know?
I wouldn't say it's I don't care. There's just levels to it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't deep. It was like, okay, cool. I cared about you. I wanted things to be well with you. I cared about what was happening
You
in your
love me with the
life.
Lord. You love
I
me with the
loved you with
love
the
of the
love
Lord.
of the Lord. I
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
did. I
okay.
sure did.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I love this part of our story because, in the moment of you sharing what you shared with me, and there's so much that I feel like is relevant about like this whole concept of, taking uh like God's purpose for relationships and how they can be leveraged for his kingdom purpose, right?
Mhm.
And it requires obedience. So had you not, like, let's say the Holy Spirit prompted you to say something to me and you had not done that in the moment. I'm not saying God couldn't have used another means, but I'm just saying like it requires like being yielded to him,
Mhm.
to have impact with people, because that did open me up, because I felt like, oh man, I could trust this person with into most intimate things in my heart, which are my prayers to God. Because what you shared with me was actually an answer to prayer. And I was bawling because I was like, dang, I've been asking God this same question for a long time, and looking for answers, and he gave it to me. Like, he sees me, he hears me, and he told me, even if it's not what I want to hear, I know that I'm hearing from God,
Mm.
and that he loved me enough to answer my prayer and to do it in like in a very undeniable way, because we hadn't talked about certain things. there was no way you could have known, like, I'm praying to God about this and I'm wondering that. Like, we hadn't opened up that level of relating.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, the truth is there are some specifics that I hit that I didn't share in this
yeah.
instance, but there's some targeted specifics that I hit that there was no way I would have known, the
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
were shared or whatever. And so, I get it, and I'm just thankful. And I'm not just thankful because it got me a wife, you know what I mean? But
You didn't know that
because at the
that's
time
what was going to
I didn't
happen.
know that's what it was going to translate to. But I'm just thankful because, if you're a person that you really, are trying to serve God and, you feel like you hear from God or you have gifts and stuff, you want to make sure that you're truly hearing from Him and that you're accurate and all that
Mhm.
type of stuff. That's deeply important to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that should be important to any person
Yeah,
of
for
faith,
sure.
no matter what your gift is. But I mean, if you're a person that you believe you're prophetic, well, one of the core tenets of being a prophetic person is accuracy, on the things that God is saying,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, when she began to share the specific details that were relevant and that confirmed the things that I was saying to her, it was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, yeah,
At some point.
and so that opened up, a level of really what I now know in hindsight of intimacy
Yeah,
between she and
yeah.
I, but it
Mhm.
was not romantic.
Right.
So let's drop a point out there, man. Sometimes, man, you gotta hit a level of intimacy, and it don't gotta always be the lovey-dovey romantic stuff, man.
True.
You know.
Very
Let me
true.
tell you another one that was so critical about that because I actually hit some things that were important for me that this served, and I began to see it in hindsight. Well, I was so guarded when it pertained to relationships because being raised like I was raised, and I was a very purpose driven, purpose focused person, and even some of the just human things that I've seen about relationships and stuff like that. My position was like, hey, man, I don't care how cute or beautiful a girl is. If she doesn't check certain boxes, and I know for sure this is a person that has a certain level of character and just a walk with God and different things like that, and I'm a quick read of people too,
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
fast.
Yeah.
Oh man, you have no chance if I see that you're not checking certain boxes, and it doesn't matter how cute you are, right?
Mhm.
And not to say you wouldn't have checked some of those boxes, but if I were prioritizing romantic considerations first,
Mhm.
I might have been so closed and so,
Mhm.
scrutinizing
Mhm.
that I wouldn't have opened up to that level of intimacy with you so fast,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But because I was not focused, it's almost like I even made a reference that, well, the first institution that was, started in the Bible was the family.
Mhm.
And the process of that being started was, well, Adam was put to sleep.
Yep.
There was a level of his consciousness that was
Mhm.
put to rest.
Mhm.
And then a relationship was brought to him while he
Mhm.
was at rest in his consciousness. And
Mhm.
he just woke up to like, oh, wow, like
Mhm.
I got this great thing. It's bone of my bone, flesh of my
Yeah.
flesh, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, I really feel like that's what occurred to
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
because at that time, the romantic side of me was like completely put to sleep. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
it didn't matter who the girl was. I had just shut that completely down. At that time period, I had even told all of my female friends, like, we. Can't talk anymore.
Mhm.
I mean, just as a sidebar, I had experienced in a window of time that almost every female friend that I was like cool with at some point came to me and said, hey, Joe, I like you, stuff. And I started thinking, well, the common denominator is me, like something. So I started evaluating, like, oh man, maybe I'm giving people too much of my time,
Mhm.
too much of like just kind of deep, intimate conversations.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm being too charming. I need to turn some of the charm off. I
Mhm.
need to, do something. So I told, at that time period, most of all my women friends, like, hey, uh, we're not going to be talking as much and stuff like that and spending time together or a whole bunch of deep conversations and stuff like that. And I just focused on myself and like,
Mhm.
working on myself on all levels, mentally, spiritually, physically, all that type of stuff.
Right.
So that romantic side of me was like, it was darn near dead, right? And, but it opened the door for me to connect with Candace in a more important even deeper way,
Yeah.
spiritually first. And I know I'm kind of going to get ahead of some things, but well, after we post that moment, spent really like a year of being friends and talking to each other and encouraging each other spiritually and in faith and all that type of stuff. There came a point where I told Candace I loved her.
Yeah.
And it wasn't romantic. I wasn't saying it romantically, but I really loved her as a person because I just really felt responsible for her. You know, I had spent so much time with her and just sharing spiritually and stuff like that. You know, now we're fellowshipping together in church and all of that. And this had just really became my friend. But also, it was a friend that, like, every time we would spend time together and talk, we would like feel the presence of God while we would be spending time together and talking and all that. And then, you know, we would pray. We would pray together and stuff like that. Now, once again, admittedly, in hindsight, how you gonna resist praying with a brother? You know, I can now see in hindsight that, hey man, these were the deepest levels of intimacy you could go to a person
Yeah.
or with a person, then focusing on the more physical romantic.
That's true.
In my opinion, they're
That's true.
even deeper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
very true.
we were just really deeply connecting, you know, like spiritually and mentally and sharing and stuff like that. And I really loved Candace as a person before I even woke up to like, oh man, like she is beautiful and, you know, all that type of thing. So, but I'll let you tell how we kind of got to, you know, the.
Yeah, I mean, so we were, you know, just again still well, I'll start with that moment. After that moment, you know, we kept hanging out. We, you know, I came to the church. Decided, yeah, I think I'm going to join this church. You know, I had talked to my boyfriend at the time. Was like, "Hey, you know, I really want to join this church. I want to get focused back on my relationship with God, you know." And I was really proposing, like, yeah, I think we should, if, you know, I want to do it together. But he was honest with me, and I'm glad that he was. That, you know, he was just like, hey, I'm not there right now. Like, you know, I don't want, I'm just not focused right now. That's not what I want to do. And I was just like, okay. And so in my mind at the time, I was like, all right, God, well, you know, I guess you'll work it out, you know, but I'm still going to try to keep things together. And over time, eventually, God just made it very clear to me that, you know, I needed to make a decision and I needed to put that relationship down because the truth was I had made that an idol. I had put that completely above God and before Him. You know, I never consulted God to ask Him if that's what you have for me. I just made decisions about what I wanted and was like, God, can you bless this, please? Because this is really what I want.
Now listen, let me chime in here, and I want to put a couple of things on record, right? You know, I wasn't in there trying to steal this man's girl
don't
with
have to.
Jesus. You know, I never spoke on him. I never
No.
was like, oh, I never gave any opinions about
I
him,
never gave you
or
access to do so.
yeah, you know.
It's-
And let me go on record and say this. I mean, he was a good dude.
yes,
He
very
was a
good guy.
really good dude.
Yep.
Like,
Very good
aside
guy.
from me, I don't know. You know? I mean, Candace was a great chooser and picker of people because he was a good
He's a
dude, a
good
super
guy.
good dude. You know, eventually me and Candace started dating and all that, and I actually reached out to him and told him I want to let you know that at no time was it my agenda
Yeah,
to try to
no.
come and take your girl or do
Mm-mm.
none of that, right?
Mm-mm.
And I hope you guys take note that Candace, they broke up on their own accord.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't put my hand in that or try to push that in any
No. And because
directions.
we were friends, like although you weren't like super dating or anything like that, you know, you had options if you wanted to consider them.
Oh, your boy had
You
options
know,
now.
so
Don't get it twisted. This
yeah.
was, you know,
So it
I
wasn't
was off the shelves and on the bench by choice, man. I told
yeah.
coach, man, coach, let the
But
other
you
boys
know,
play, man. Let the B
but
squad play.
you know, you know, you had options.
For
It wasn't
sure.
like you was just sitting over there, you know, solo dolo. You
Yeah,
know
I
what
was
I
having
mean?
to Jin Kudo them off, boy. Walk his wall. My, you know what I'm saying? I was having to, you know what I'm saying, keep him off me now, you know?
So
Okay?
I'm saying yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, I'm only pointing that out to say, like, yeah, there was definitely no, like, foul play or like ill intention or nothing. Because if it were, because the type of person that we both are,
Mhm.
we would have never, like, there would have, that boundary of friendship and like opening up our relationship to really relate to each other would have never come down.
Mhm.
There was genuine trust and care there for sure. And the fact that we all went on a double date, and the fact that, you know, we all had opportunities to spend time together. You know what I mean? Like,
Listen, man, we've told this story before, and I've had friends that joke around and be like, "Man, that boy Joe is an assassin. Like, he went out on a double
no,
date with
yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
everything. He
It was
took the
not
man
like
to church."
it was not like
It
that.
was not
It
like
was
that
not
at
like that.
all. That was not what I was on,
No,
And I had no idea that it was ultimately going to translate to this person was going to become my wife.
no,
Like, I had
n-
no idea.
there's no way you would have
None.
known that. There's
Yeah.
no way. But fast forward, God, I really heard clearly from God, like I needed to end the relationship, and so I did. And we did. We made a collective decision. And to be honest, I kind of partially did. Like initially I was like, all right, God, but you could run it back though, like in your time,
You say you can run it
you
back,
can run it
man.
back, Jesus,
Oh, man.
maybe not right now, maybe later,
Yeah.
when we get focused on you spiritually.
You was gonna try to save you a man. You was gonna try to lead him to the Lord and you
No,
know.
I didn't feel it wasn't even that. It's just I had hope in my heart still
Okay.
for what I kept asking God for him to just like go on
Hmm.
and give me what I'm asking for, God.
Save him, not for your glory, God, but mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fundamentally. And God was like,
My glory.
kill that idol because I never told you to go that direction in the first place. Matter of fact, told you multiple times. The answer was no. You didn't want to hear me.
It's so
So,
funny. I mean, hopefully I'm not, going in a space you don't want me to, but you over the years you told me that like even his mother
yeah,
was
that's what I'm
like
referring
very,
to. His
yeah,
mom was like,
very spiritual, and she
that
used
ain't
to
it.
always say like,
Yeah.
you are with somebody else's wife and you are
He's
with
with
somebody
somebody
else's
else's
husband
husband.
and stuff, and you just thought she was a hater.
I did because I wanted what I wanted.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, even, I prayed and asked God before I ever met her. I was like, can you show her who I am? Like, I want her to know, like, I'm a good girl and I love you.
You didn't say, I want her to know I'm her daughter-in-law.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. I was like, just show her, like, I'm a good girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, make it happen, make it
Yeah.
work. And I think God actually did show her, and she was like, yeah, no, it's not it.
Yeah.
So, but nevertheless, ended the relationship. And I actually don't remember how much time passed before I actually told you. I feel like it might have
Hmm.
just been a month or so. But I didn't want to, I was very careful to make sure that I like kind of dealt with the, breaking of that relationship. And I just wanted to be careful about how I managed that because I had never, I just had never been in that place before.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think I remember specifically, like, although you were kind of my best friend at the time, like, I intentionally was like, yeah, I just need to sit on this for a second and kind of like work through it before I share it with anybody.
Yeah, I remember the day you told me you guys broke up. We were coming out of a church service, and you were like, "Yeah, I gotta tell you something." I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And you told me you guys broke. I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Dang," And then
Hmm.
I don't know if I asked you like, "Why? What happened?" In that moment or later, and you began to give
I
me
feel
any.
like it was later
Yeah,
because we had something to do. Probably one of us had to go to work or something. But
yeah, yeah. But I
yeah.
want to give some time boxes too to give some more context
Hmm.
from the time that I ministered to the young lady, in the branch, in the bank branch, invited her to church, and by the time she told me that they had broken up, like a year had gone
Yeah,
by,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so we were friends
Hmm.
now on a much deeper
Yeah,
level for
yeah,
like a year.
yeah.
We were like either going to church together
Hmm.
or, of course, whenever we would come to church, we're spending time together all the time
Yeah,
because we're both serving on the worship team and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
And man, at that time, the church we were going to, did they have multiple services at that point? I think they had two services or something at that point, or Hopefully, I'm not.
No, I don't think it was 2 services. I think it was just midweek and Sunday.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so between all the rehearsals and the serving on the worship teams and all that stuff,
Bible study.
Bible studies, stuff
Mhm.
like that, we're spending lots of time together, right?
Mhm.
People see us together all the time, but it's not romantic or anything like that. But we're really, developing a really strong bond or whatever. So,
Mhm.
she comes to me and she tells me her boyfriend broke up.
Yep.
And even then, I wasn't all like, okay, what's up,
No.
Um, what's interesting is the thing that um kind of woke me up or was a push and a catalyst towards just considering, Candace more romantically was at this point now I was approaching graduating from college.
Mhm.
You know, I've told this on other episodes, but I worked full time, paid my own way through school, just really grinded hard. But in the process, I ended up sitting a year out from school. So I had an extra year than I would have normally to finish school. So now I was coming to the point of finishing that extra year. And Candace is 2 years younger than me. So first of all, had I not had that extra year, I might been long gone by that time period. So that's first off.
That's
Um,
true.
but now I'm getting close to wrapping up that year, and I am looking at, oh man, I'm about to finish school. I got to start my corporate career. Where am I going to go? I'm going to career fairs and stuff and putting my resume out there. I'm interviewing with different companies and things like that. And at this point, I had an offer. Now, this was where we were living in Hampton Roads, and me being at Hampton University was in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. That's close to like Newport News, Virginia Beach, Norfolk. Some people may be familiar with like Colonial Williamsburg,
Mhm.
where William and Mary and all that is. That's the area we were in, right? But I was getting job offers in like DC, New Jersey, these different places. So minimally, I'm on the brink of moving to somewhere at least 3 hours away from here,
Mhm.
if not more, right? So, but because I was so focused spiritually and serving so faithfully at the church that I was in and just felt like this was a divine space and place that God had sent me to, I really felt like I didn't want to just, although it made all the sense in the world for me to finish college and just start a career, I didn't want to just up and choose a job and just up and leave my church without giving or getting any counsel from my pastors, right?
Mhm.
So I set up a meeting with the bishop of the church, and I was filling him in like, hey, I'm coming up on the end of my school time here, and I got an offer. And the job I was leaning towards was in DC.
Mhm.
I said, man, I got a job offer at this place, a job up in DC, but I told him, hey, I don't want to just take it and just leave without putting it in front of you and getting your counsel and stuff like that. And interestingly enough, my bishop at the time, he said, well, he said, man, I just feel like the hand of God is on you and you're blessed. And he was like, so I feel that there's going to be many offers that are going to come to you and options that's going to come to you. He said, but, I feel like there's some things God is still doing with you here. So beyond this meeting, I actually ended up turning down my first job offer out of college on the word of the pastor that I had because of being connected and serving there and really believing what God was doing, right?
Mhm.
Now, in that same conversation, he said, man, I think there's some things God is still doing with you here. He was like, so, I think you should, let God lead you, but I think you should stay here and, let God finish some things he's doing with you. And I said, okay. And then as we talked more, he said, by the way, he said, I've been seeing you come into church, with a young lady, because I had been at that church at this point for like 5 years and they had saw me serve faithfully, like consistently. I was a musician and a worship leader. And, I'm speaking of myself, but there were young ladies that, showed an interest while I was in the church,
Mhm.
young, old, big and small, right? Right. Okay. But they never saw me date anyone or bring anyone into the church like the entire time I was there, right? So I know there were those that's like, man, what's his type? What is he? What's going on? But as I shared before, I was so focused spiritually that they never saw me bring anyone in there, right? So now for the first time, they see me bringing Candace in there and we're together like all the time. And once again, in hindsight, I should be able to see this, but at that point, I'm not tracking how much this has their attention because they're like, we haven't seen him bring anybody in here like this. And now we see him with this young lady all the time. And not to mention, Candace is beautiful, got a beautiful countenance and all this type of stuff. So my bishop is like, hey, I see you with this young lady that you've been coming in here with. Who is this? You right? And I say, oh man, that's my friend, man. That's my friend, man. She's a coworker of mine, good friend of mine named Candace or whatever. And he said, anything, going on? I said, oh no, this is just my friend, And then I began to tell him like, no, I just been really focused, spiritually and X, Y, and Z and stuff. And he said, well, I think you need to, I think you need to see what's going on, right? And I said, oh, okay, and I said, all right, Bishop, okay. And so that was the first moment that, the consideration came in my brain, like, oh, okay. But I still was like really focused, and it was like, oh, no, right? Go from there. Still serving, faithfully. Now we're both serving on the worship team and stuff. And one night after a Wednesday night service, we finished serving. And the first lady of the church, the bishop's wife, we come out into the lobby and stuff like that. And we're walking. And she said, hey, Brother Joseph. It's like she popped out nowhere out of the crowd. Hey, right? And she said, hey, Brother Joseph, hey, who is this? Who is this? Right? And I said, oh, yeah, Pastor. I said, this is my friend Candace, my coworker. She said, coworker, okay, coworker, okay. Right? So that was the second time that had me like, oh, okay, But the third time was, this was months later after that. We were serving in a Wednesday night service again. I think it was a Wednesday. Yeah, I'm sure it was a Wednesday. It was a midweek. It was a midweek service. And the assistant pastor, like you know how churches flow. If you're on the worship team, you're singing on the front end of the service. And then, the preaching and stuff goes on. And then now we got to have these altar calls, man. So, we're back up and we're singing and stuff while altar call and all that is going on. And then, of course, you got to close out, man, and benediction and stuff. So as it closes out now, we're coming down off the stage, all the stuff. And then the assistant pastor met us at the last step. Like, hey, right? And he says, what's going on with you two? I'm like, what you talking about? What you mean?
Like,
You know what I'm saying?
what
He
do
said,
you
oh,
mean?
you know what I'm talking about.
We were
Right?
like, what?
You know what I'm talking about. And he said, y'all need to go figure out what's going on with you two. Right? And, we kind of looked at each other like, okay. So we said, all right, when we got out of there, we said, yeah, let's go talk or whatever. And around that time period, because the church we went to was in Newport News, Virginia, and very near that church, there was an area that had been revitalized. They had built what's called this new city center. I mean, it's old now, but at that time period,
Brand new.
it was a brand new city center. It had this nice little water fountain area in the midst of all these hotels and stuff like that. So we said, hey, let's just go out to the city center, sit, talk, whatever the case may be. And so we sat and we talked. I think I initiated and said, what is going on, with us? And what I remember is, you being like, I like you,
We always agree on this part of the story.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said, I
Yeah.
like
See,
you.
there's a part that I chose not to home in on that we tend to not agree. I might double back on that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And you were like, I like you. And I said to myself, Because I'm the type of person that I think and analyze in real time while I'm,
Mhm.
talking. And I immediately knew, although I was talking in real time, but I immediately knew if I answered her, like, I like you too, I immediately knew, like, oh man,
It's a wrap.
it's going to be a wrap because I already loved her as a person,
Mhm.
you know? And she was already so past my gates. Because normally, like I said before, regardless if a young lady is pretty or talented or you name it, if the right combination of like beauty inside and out and principles and upbringing and all that type of stuff isn't there and faith isn't there, you have no chance with me. So typically my gates are up so much and scrutinizing those things before I even let you in. But because of the nature of how our relationship went, she already was way past my gates and in my heart just as a person.
Mhm.
So I thought to myself, like, oh man, like how do I feel? And if I say, oh man, I like you too, I know I'm never gonna be able to get rid of this girl. Like, I would have to be a complete jerk, you know, to get rid of her,
Mhm.
But I really thought to myself, like, yeah, I really love her,
Yeah.
as a person, right? So I said, hey man, I like you too. And we both decided, hey, let's try this, right? Let's
Mhm.
try this. And we did, and
Mhm.
of course, the rest is history, and so much has happened in between.
Mhm.
But I think there's some nuances that I just want to make sure that's being pulled out. Uh, um, that there was a much deeper spiritual connection before we even checked some of the more natural
Yeah,
things,
that's true.
right?
Yeah. Yep. 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 Very
Um,
true.
and there can be pros and cons that come with that.
Mhm.
But I can say till today, even when we've ran into areas where we're not really as in alignment
Yep.
or we have like challenges and hard times, because every relationship has its challenges. Like
Mhm.
every relationship
Mhm.
does. The thing that has always kept me is that same core thing.
Mhm.
It's, I feel the same level of like responsibility, the same level of intimacy, the same level of care for like your soul,
Mhm.
and your spirit as I ever did.
Mhm.
Even when I can't stand you. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Right? I
Yep.
wanna just right? Right? But that has never left because of how our relationship was started,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And it's very hard for me to abandon that
Yep.
or lose that,
Yep.
right?
I felt the same exact way. I was literally thinking, or at earlier, I was thinking to share this a similar sentiment because
Yeah.
for me, the thing that has kept us or kept me over the years has been the fact that I know I can trust you. You know,
Mm.
I know without question I can trust you because you really love God for real. And I know that that's your, God is what governs you, God is what um leads you. And so I'm God's girl, so I'm gonna be straight. you
No, I
know?
mean, the truth is, if I could go into all the nuances of how you're God's girl, oh my God, I can't stand it sometimes, actually.
I can hear it in your tone.
I can't stand it because I often pay the tab on how much you're God's girl. Like, I'm having this man, sacrifice and stuff.
Mhm.
So, I feel like maybe only God knew. I mean, I don't know if it's that if our relationship wasn't formed that way, it never would have been formed or not. All I know is how it was formed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
No, I think it's pivotal the way it was formed because it's the thing that's the foundation of what has sustained us over the years,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. So I guess if we could turn it into, some nuggets and some tips, it's like, a lot of times how you begin is what's going to sustain you. It's going to be your foundation, right?
Mhm.
And I think we were fortunate enough to start with God first,
Yeah.
and spiritually edifying and enriching each other first, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And once again, even when we're at our worst with each other, that's still the core nucleus,
Right.
right? So, it's the thing that keeps us bonded. And, we get in, as all people, we get in the flesh, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
But it always ends up coming back to like, oh no, we got to get that foundation in its order
Every time.
and all that type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, Now I'll say this. I mean, I didn't do bad, man. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, like, although I wasn't focused on the natural physical thing at first, once I did, like, wake up to that, I was like, oh man, she's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like, just outwardly and inwardly. The bigger thing was the inward thing that I, really have always loved about you, or
Mhm.
whatever. Um, So, I mean, I feel privileged to almost have just stumbled up on a person that, has these qualities, right? I wasn't trying to, I saw you out and about or in the mall and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
about to
Yeah,
bag, baby,
yeah. Right, right,
right?
right.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
It
wasn't
wasn't
like
like
that
that.
at all. It was
Mm-mm.
like, in the really the purest form,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times we may not afford ourselves the opportunity to meet and connect with people in a very pure way because of the things that we lead with.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. You're not sinning if you are like, oh man, baby is,
Mhm.
ooh wee,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
But, I think it was my prioritization of my spirit, my faith, and my relationship with God that gave me a chance to find a help, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so just bringing it back to the garden in the beginning,
Yeah.
like Adam was on mission.
Mhm.
He had a word, he had instructions, he had direction, he had a focus from God. He was focused in on that. It was God that had to put him to sleep,
Mhm.
and bring something to him. And he just woke up to it.
Yeah.
And it was the essence of what was inside of what was brought to him that he then could say, oh man, I found a wife.
Mhm.
Like, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I legitimately feel like, that's what happened to me,
I
to where it's like
yeah.
I was just on mission, just super focused. Next thing you know, I just out of nowhere developed this relationship that was just so, close knit and intimate that I couldn't even tell you how I earned it really and feel like I couldn't get rid of it,
Yeah.
right?
It's true.
And then as it evolved more in the romantic space, I got to really like say truly like, oh man, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. You know what I'm saying? Meaning like, so me and Kenneth have always spoke about, let's say we were to, because we had our challenges and stuff like that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
we've had opportunities to break up and
Yes,
do
we
the,
have.
stuff, right?
Yes.
So let's say we would have done that, right? I still can't see a world that we wouldn't have been in each other's life, or
Mhm.
that she wouldn't have been an integral part of my life, because my interest wasn't romantic
Mhm.
predominantly. It was I loved this person and wanted to see the best for this person,
Mhm.
wanted to see this person prospering and blessed on every area, or in every area of her life, and predominantly in the highest area, which was her spiritual life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so the level of care that was there, you know, just really deep.
Mhm.
And the heart connection, the intimacy, by the time I'm thinking romantic, I'm really like, oh man, this is like my person,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think, we gotta afford ourselves that opportunity by leading with something different sometimes,
Mhm. That's good advice.
Yeah, like not always leading with like the tangible,
Mhm.
and oh man, the conversations we hear nowadays about like relationships and the qualifiers
We
and what we
yeah
lead with,
yeah
it's
it's
like,
not
oh my gosh,
yeah.
man. It's cringe worthy
Mhm.
on all sides, right? And
Mhm.
let me say a side note. One of the things that bothers me, me and Candace are like 15 years strong
Oh yeah
married,
yeah yeah.
right?
We've been married a long
We
time.
dated for 2.5 years, right? So
Mhm.
we've been together 17 and a half, almost 18
Yep
years, right?
yep.
One of the things that trips me out is don't nobody want to hear nothing a married man that's been standing strong in this 10 toes down got to say about relationships. Why is that?
I don't know.
That's a whole nother
It's a
that's a whole
whole
nother
other
episode,
episode.
man.
It's a
You
whole other
can't
episode.
tell people who are single
Mhm.
and they're having all the discussions about
Mhm.
relationships, right?
Mhm.
They got all the answers, but
Mhm.
single as they want to be, ain't been married a day.
Mhm.
But if I tried to chime in
Right.
and say, hey, while I'm not perfect, man, here's some jewels.
Right.
I better say the thing they want to hear.
Mhm.
You know, it's like,
Yes.
oh man, we need, and it may not be me. Maybe I don't got the answers, but we need more people who you've actually been in a committed marriage, working this thing out.
Yeah.
We would like you to be relatively happy. You know what I'm saying, right?
For
Because there's some
sure.
miserable people out here,
Yeah.
right? Holding on by a thread. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
But we want some people that's like relatively happy, but's been putting in the work to
Yeah.
kind of speak to these relational things. Cause
Mhm.
I feel like, man, we're hearing so many opinions that it's like, oh man. And here's the last thing I say about that, and then we can move on from this. The loudest people in the social sphere are, to me, never seem like the people who are actually happy in their
That's
relationships.
true.
You know?
Mhm.
It's the people who are miserable,
Mhm.
I mean, beyond pessimistic,
Mhm.
have all the opinions in the world.
Mhm.
And I personally believe, like, the happy wives, they're too busy being happy, living a soft life, playing with their
Mhm.
kids,
Mhm.
being hugged up with their husbands to be on
Yeah.
social media. The husbands too busy working, paying
Right.
bills, what I'm
Yep.
saying, feeding people,
Right.
trying to build a legacy
Yeah.
to be on social media
Right.
talking, right? So we get the noise from all the other people, and then in your actual regular life, sometimes when you then try to have exchanges with people and drop some jewels, man, people have been so indoctrinated and you're so drowned out by these other voices.
Mhm.
People do not want to hear what you have to say.
Mm-mm.
And it's sad, man.
Yeah.
It looks bleak. Like, especially when I talk to some of my guys that's still single.
Mhm.
Oh, it sounds so bleak. Even the young ladies, when I
Mhm.
talk to them, it sounds so bleak out there.
Yeah,
Oh my
man.
gosh, man. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sorry. My heart was bleeding for a
No.
second. I'm sorry. You
No, I
know.
mean, that does make me I have thought about that, like, you know, being thankful that we don't got to be in them streets now because we got married
You
early.
don't want to be out in the streets, but
No.
oh, okay. The streets
No.
ain't for you.
Not for me.
Oh, okay.
I'm right here.
It's
I'm in the
ghetto out
house.
in the streets, man.
Nah,
You know
I'm
what I'm
good. I
saying?
don't want to be in the streets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
to do it.
I mean, you know what? I'm definitely happy. I'm happy. I'm good on being out there in them streets. But sometimes I joke, man, like when I listen to some of my homeboys and stuff, man, and it's a scene in the movie Paid in Full
Mm.
where Mekhi Phifer playing Money Man, she's like, the streets need me, B, right? that's what that's the scene that run through my mind sometimes because it
Yes.
sounds so terrible out there. I'm
Right.
like, the streets need me, B, right?
That's
But nah, I'm good at
hilarious.
home, man, because it sounds terrible out
It
there. It
does.
sounds horrible.
It does. I don't want no parts.
Yeah,
I
man.
want no parts.
So I'm thankful that, my life just led me to a quality person,
Yeah.
and the initiator or the initiation of this was like God-centered, God-focused,
Yeah, for sure.
you know, clearly God orchestrated,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it all just kind of worked out. Now, the truth about what we always tend to argue about is I always tell people Candace wouldn't stop, fraternizing with me on the job, man. She was,
Oh.
you know, wouldn't leave me alone.
I
That's
was
what I
not
always
fraternizing with you.
throw out there as a little joke. But
But I did care about you though. Like when you talked about you know, Adam going to sleep and then being presented with a helper. I just remember after that conversation that we had, where you shared with me and then I shared with you what my prayers were and like all the things.
Mhm.
From that moment on, I was like, I just had a heart posture like, what can I do for him? Like, he blessed me and I just want to help him.
Oh man,
So
we didn't
when,
even get into all of
yeah,
that. Like, whoa,
yeah.
yeah.
So, naturally, I just was like, hey, like, I just cared. Like, I wanted to know, like, do you need anything? If you need a ride or,
Oh
anything like that.
Lord, you
Like,
gonna make me sound like it's about to sound like I'm a. It's about to sound like I'm a bum. I was a bum.
no, we were
I-
in
yeah,
college.
yeah. So like, because I mean, but you just threw that out there. Do you need a ride? They like, the women's ears perked up. Need a ride?
So we need
What he need
context.
a ride for? He ain't got no. So
Listen,
listen, hold on, okay, hold on. Stop judging me, Patricia. Okay, Patricia.
Oh
All right,
my
listen to
god.
me. I'm gonna give some context to what she just threw out there. She was
Yeah.
like, "You need a ride? What do you need a ride for?" I'm sure that's what. So
No, yeah,
listen,
yeah.
when I was in college, I had left home at 18 on my own, and I was like
Mhm.
busting my butt and going through all type of ups and downs just on faith, right? And
Mhm.
I had some my first when I first got to college, it was like really challenging. I didn't know how I was going to make this, and I was paying for school out of my pocket, like no student loans or anything, and taking care of myself. Right
Yeah.
now, by the time I met Candace, I was 22, turning 23, or no,
You
I
were
was.
21, 22. You
Oh yeah,
had to be
you're
20,
no. Let me
21,
think.
20, 21.
No, so we dated for 2.5 years, and then we got married when I was 25,
Oh yeah,
right?
I'm thinking I was 23,
So
not
yeah,
you.
it was
Yeah.
you. Yeah, so I was 22, 23 when
Yeah.
I met her. So by
Yeah.
that time period, I had been up in Hampton Roads out on my own for
Yeah.
getting close to my 5th year. So
Mhm.
I had gone through numerous ups and downs. When I
Mhm.
first got to Hampton, it was a challenge trying to figure out how I was going to make it and all that type of stuff,
Mhm.
grinding. But then I had found a really good job. I was selling timeshares up in Colonial Williamsburg,
Mhm.
killing it. Between the time I was 19 to like 21, getting close to 22, was killing it, right? I
Mhm.
mean, just a little context. It's not a whole bunch of money in the world now. But at 19, I made like 70 some thousand selling timeshares, full commission, killing it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
20, I bumped that up to like mid 70s, almost 80. And then my 3rd year selling timeshare, I made 80,000,
Mhm.
at 21
Mhm.
selling timeshares, a
Yeah.
full commission job, right?
Mhm.
But my college was a private school. Hampton University is a private school, so it was like 30,000 a year, right?
Mhm.
So 30,000 of the money I was making was going straight to school,
Yeah.
right? And then I was living off of the rest of it and all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
But by the time Candace met me, mind you, if you were tracking the story that I told, well, I lost that job selling the timeshares
Right.
because
Right.
sales and timeshares is a grimy game. It's a
Yeah.
grimy game. So,
Mhm.
some things happened to where some people did some grimy stuff and start letting people go, all that type of stuff. So now I had 3 years of making like really good money that was affording me to pay for school and take care of myself. Now I'm trying to figure out like, well, man, how I'm gonna make anything close to that type of money.
Mhm.
And so a number of things just all converged on me at the same time during that time period. I still had to pay for another year of school.
Mhm.
My car started messing up on me and breaking down on me. I still had to pay all my bills and all that different type of stuff. So things just kind of got tight on me in a window. And there came this moment to where my car broke down on me and I needed some time to get another one or get it fixed and all that. So I told you guys, man, I'm a man of faith, man. I was living by faith. So at that time, I also told you that while I lived in Hampton, the job I was working at was 15 minutes away from the campus and where I was living. Well, because my car had broke down on me, I was bumming rides from friends. I was taking taxis every other day, going to school, Uber, or going to school and work. Uber didn't
Uber
exist
did
back
not
then.
exist back then.
So I'm taking taxis, bumming rides off of friends. I even was thumbing sometimes to work. I would just like
Mhm.
literally thumb, like get
Mhm.
out on the streets, put my thumb up,
Mhm.
and if someone had stopped, I was like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to get to here or trying to get to there. Can you take me?" And sometimes people are like, "Well, I can take you this far," and I would let them take me that far, and then I would figure out how to get to the next spot, right? So,
Mhm.
and then I had many instances where, before I would do this, I would just pray and I was like, man, God, like, I need a way to get home, or I need, and I would just listen for God to give me instructions
Yeah.
and I would follow it. And I got many stories on, things that occurred. But to her point, what led to this was because we started kind of getting to know each other more. There came a point where Candace realized that I was getting to work and stuff and school and stuff in unconventional ways, right? And she started to really care about me. And one day she came, we had worked together that night before, but we ended up having to work on the morning shift.
Mhm.
So when she was leaving, she was like, "Are you good?" and stuff. Now I didn't know how I was going to get home, but she was a
Mhm.
girl and she had a
Mhm.
boyfriend and stuff. So I was just like, "No, I'm good."
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in my mind, in my heart, I'm like, God, I don't know how I'm gonna get home. And I done ran out of all my money. I done spent all my money on cabs and different stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I'm praying and I'm talking to God. And I'm like, man, God, how am I gonna get home? All my coworkers had left at that time period. Everybody's gone. I'm just still stuck up there at that Walmart. And I hear God say, hey, go sit on the bench at the front of the store, and I'm gonna provide you a way to get home.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, in my heart, I'm like, all right. And I go and I sit on this bench.
Mhm.
And once again, Candace had begun asking me, how'd you get home yesterday? Or how did
Mhm.
you this, But this night, she asked, how was I going to get home? She left. Now here I am sitting on the bench by the leading of God, right? And a guy just comes up to me out of nowhere, really kind of scruffy, dirty guy. He says, hey, man, I need some help, man. He says, hey, I got a little infant baby. And, me and my wife, man, we're like low. We don't have any money, man. And we need diapers, you know? He's like, man, can you help me out? Now, I told you I was taking cabs everywhere,
Mhm.
and this was like 15, 20 minutes from where I lived. So I had a little bit of money on me. I might have had $7, 8, maybe $9 on me, but it wasn't enough for a cab to
Mhm.
get back to where I needed to get to.
Mhm.
So the guy comes up to me and says, hey, man, we need some diapers and things, man. And I said, hey, I tell you what, I think I got just enough to maybe get you a small pack of diapers, man, if you're willing to take me home.
Mhm.
And he said, yeah, yeah, man, we can do that, man. All right. I said, okay, cool. So I go into the store, we grab the pack of diapers, I buy the diapers for him, you know what I'm saying? Hand it to him and stuff like that. He says, all right, man, well, come on, man. Me and my guy, we'll take you home. So he brings me out to a car. He says to a guy in the driver's seat, hey, man, hey, I met the guy, my buddy, man. We're going to take him home real quick, man. And the guy's looking like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, what? You know? And I'm taking notice of this, but I'm like, okay. So he says, yeah, man, it's all good, man. It's cool, man. It's all good. We're just going to take him home real quick. So he says, come on, man, go ahead and get in. So I get in the back seat. And when I sit in the back seat, that's when all the details, I started picking up all the details. The guy that was driving had really long, dirty hair. He had really long, dirty nails and stuff. You know, it wasn't looking good, right? And he says, hey, man, where do you want us to take her? I said, man, I live off of this exit, man. I'll give you instructions, as we get closer. So they get out and they start driving. And the whole time the guy that was driving I'm wishing I had something to demonstrate how this guy, he had his hands on the steering wheel, and the whole time he's going like this on the steering wheel with the long, dirty nails. And we're going down streets that is like really dark. In fact, the street that I lived on at that time was like
Mhm.
this really long street that had no street lights on it for like miles until you got to this one random Wendy's that was on this Wendy's fast food restaurant. This random Wendy's is on this street, and it's like the only thing that
That's
had
true.
street lights near it, right? So he's doing like this with his fingers, and you might be picking up on the vibes,
Mhm.
but the gaps that I haven't filled here
Mhm.
is it's clearly dawning on me like, oh, they didn't need diapers.
Mm.
They were looking for a way to get money for something else,
Mm.
you know? And
Mhm.
I'm now feeling like, Lord, I'm
Protect
in
me.
danger. Lord, I need your protection. So I'm in the backseat praying, like, God, I need you to get me home and get me home safe,
Mhm.
right? So we finally get like close to that Wendy's, but the apartment complex I stayed in was a little ways up from that Wendy's, but I could get there by walking to it.
Mhm.
So as soon as we got to that Wendy's, I was like, hey, yeah, you can turn right here in this Wendy's, man. And I did it intentionally because it was all lit up and stuff.
Mhm.
I said, hey, man, you can turn right here in this Wendy's, man. Drop me off right here.
Mhm.
And, they dropped me off in that Wendy's, and I went in the Wendy's like I was about to go order me some
Mhm.
food and everything and let
Mhm.
them drive off, right? Because I
Mhm.
said, oh, man, there ain't no telling what this could turn into. And after they drove off, I then came back out the Wendy's and walked the rest of the way and went home.
Mhm.
So because Candace had gotten into a rhythm
Mhm.
because of her care that she was just mentioning, right?
Mhm.
Of asking me like, how did you get home last night? And
Mhm.
all that. The next day when we got to work, she said, hey, how did you get home last night?
Mhm.
And I told her the story that I just told you. All right.
Mortified.
And she said, oh my God, don't you ever do that again. She's like, you could have been kidnapped. You could have been killed.
They could have killed you. What
They
you
could have
doing?
killed you. And
Yo.
she said, oh my God, don't you ever do that. She was like, if I have to come pick you up myself
Mhm.
every day and take you to work and take you home, that's what I'll do. Even if I don't have to work, that's what I'll
That's what
do.
I said.
And I said, well, no, you don't got to do that. She was like, no, that's
No,
what I'm
just
going to
call
do. Just
me and
call
I'll
me,
come
right?
get you.
So from that day on, Candace began to come and pick me up and take me to work.
Yep.
And even if she didn't have to work, she
Mhm.
would come pick me up and take me to work, or come pick me up from work and take me home,
Mhm.
even if she didn't have to work.
Mhm.
Now, once again, Patricia, this didn't go on too long now. This
No,
wasn't
it
too
wasn't
long
long at
now,
all.
okay?
And it wouldn't have mattered to me, but
You know,
it
this was
wasn't
like,
long at
what?
all.
Was it like a month,
Maybe a
maybe?
month or two.
Month or
Because you got
two.
your own.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Because I was getting my thing together to get me
Mhm.
another car now,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
But that window, we became
Really
even
good.
closer,
Yep.
like
Really good friends.
really good friends, really close. Because now we were together almost every day,
Mhm.
and we would ride to work, and we would be talking about faith and
Mhm.
praying together
Yep.
and like ministering to each other and
Yep.
stuff. And the presence of God would
Would
be like
be.
really strong
Yep.
while we would be talking to each
Yep.
other.
Yep.
And we did that for like 2 months, 2.5 months and stuff. Her boyfriend completely knew this
Mhm.
was going
Yeah.
on and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Now, let me admit, older me, if I was your boyfriend,
You're
no
like, oh
way.
hell
No,
no.
he's out of here. He got to find his own way.
He a
He
grown man.
walking
He
to
gonna
work.
figure it out. Right.
Especially if you know what you can't resist this anointing
That is
up close and
so
personal.
funny.
Right?
So funny.
So if we could switch roles now
Yeah.
and I could go back. No, you out of here, brother. But that window gave the window for us to become
Really good
super
friends.
close
Yeah.
and like really good friends. And that was the foundations of everything.
It was. It really was. I mean, the way I would describe it is like I trusted you and I felt so safe, you know? Like I just remember feeling like, dang, I can talk to him about like the deepest things that really matter to me. And it's my
Mm-hmm.
relationship with God. Like,
Yeah.
and I didn't have I mean, I had friends that we could relate spiritually and stuff like that, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just different to,
Mm-hmm.
be able to I don't know. It was just different. I felt covered. I felt protected. And those are words that I wouldn't have been able to use back then. But in
Yeah.
hindsight, I know that's how it felt. Like,
Man, let me tell you another thing too. And it was in that window that I'd imagine it's the same for you, but I know for me, that's when I discovered how much we had in common
yes.
in like every way.
Yes.
I'm talking about like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in every way,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
similar experiences, similar backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
similar principles and belief systems,
Yep.
similar desires and aspirations for
Mm-hmm.
not only who we wanted to become, but like the impact we wanted to have on our families and
Mm-hmm.
what we wanted to have for like just the legacy and even the
Yeah.
spiritual inheritance and like
Mm-hmm.
the transformative things we wanted
Yeah.
for once we had our own
Yep.
families and
Yep.
all that type of stuff. I mean, we had so much in common.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like it was the things that I now can look back that informed the moment when we did decide to date
Mm-hmm.
that made me say, "Oh man, like this is my person.
Yeah.
Like this is literally like bone of my bone, flesh of my
Mm-hmm.
flesh. This person is me. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are like
Yeah.
this is my person,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?" And that's how I knew once we started dating like, "Oh man, I'm not going to be able to get rid of this person unless I do something
Mm-hmm.
stupid,
Mm-hmm.
to where everybody's gonna be looking at me like,
Like,
like you are
bruh.
a jerk, like you are,
Right.
an
Yeah.
idiot,
Yeah.
right? And I couldn't have orchestrated that,
Mm-mm.
Um, I really felt like God really orchestrated that
Mm-hmm.
because it was so authentic
Mm-hmm.
and uh, it's the word uncontrived or
Yeah. It
non-contrived.
just
What's the word? It was not
it was not
contrived, right?
contrived, you know.
It was just authentic and organic,
Mm-hmm.
and we both felt very safe and very open
Yeah.
because it was God centered,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So man, hey man, lead with God in it, man. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because
Yeah.
first of all, you're gonna well, see, that has some dangers too. I'm not talking about leading and you're putting on now and you trying to because people do try to manipulate with the spiritual talk and the
That's true.
Jesus talk, but what
That's
I'm
true.
saying is when you can see there is an authentic relationship with God and it's a shared
Yeah.
value
Mm-hmm.
and you're not only just being generally enriched when you talk to each other, but you can tell you all's minds and spirits are
Right.
being enriched and edified when
Yeah.
you exchange with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not leading with all of the charm and the romanticism because here's what I've now realized too, especially after 15 and a half, almost 16 years of marriage now. The romantic stuff, it fades, man.
Yeah.
It's not gonna always be there.
Yeah.
Like you get into the thick of life, the
Mm-hmm.
romantic stuff is not gonna always keep you.
Right.
And so what happens is people spend so much time trying to be so romantic and so, presenting their representative and everything be lovey-dovey and super happy and charming that they don't even do the real hard work
Right.
in the time that it actually needs to be done, which is when you're dating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hard conversations,
Yeah.
the real
Yep.
conversations, the digging into things spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
the understanding a person's history and the generational things that have occurred and the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual implications and the
Mm-hmm.
emotional implications of it and
All
what
that.
you're going to have to contend with. And you guys need to come to a place of agreement about
Mm-hmm.
what you want to bring into a marriage and all this type of stuff. We were naturally having those
Conversations.
conversations
Yeah.
because the emphasis wasn't romance.
Right.
The emphasis was about spiritual things
Right.
and what we felt God was saying to us and who we wanted to become
Yeah.
and the things we felt called to transform and all
Mm-hmm.
that just as individuals, let
Mm-hmm.
alone once we started thinking about this as a unit,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We were already that deep into those
Yeah.
nuances, about life
Mm-hmm.
and family and
Mm-hmm.
purpose and all that type of stuff
Mm-hmm.
way before it even got to something
Mm-hmm.
romantic,
That's so
right?
true.
And I feel like, those same things have been so instrumental to keep us because it's the agreements
Mm-hmm.
that we have, right?
That's true.
And even in our hardest times, because we've made those agreements, well, it's hard to throw that away
Right.
because we still have that agreement.
Right.
And I don't know that somebody else gonna have that same agreement out here in these
This is
streets,
why.
man.
This
Like,
is why I don't want to be out there. Cause first of all, that's a lot of work to do.
oh yeah, man, you gotta wrangle another
Yeah.
horse. Trying to get, man, come
Wrangle
on,
another
man. I can't
horse.
be trying to, trying to get you to let me saddle you. you know,
That's actually
like
an accurate description for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You
That's
know how
that's the
much
truth.
work I had to put in with this one. you
A
know.
lot. A lot.
Yeah. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but the foundation of how it all began, made it worth it. And,
Yeah.
you know, I knew it was worth it, right?
Mhm.
Because of the foundations. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Same. That's why, I just look at our relationship and look at you coming into my life as a gift. Like, I legit, that um intersection for me is such a big like transitional moment in my walk with God and in my life. Like, so much in that season of my life with you coming into my life, with the church that we were connected to, totally revolutionized my walk with God and took my relationship with God to a much deeper, more intimate place. And, it's just been evolving from there.
And here's the thing too. And the integral part of our relationship was about ministering to each other
Right.
too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you as a husband, and it's interesting, I have a deep conviction about this, but I am conscious that, well, you never know what people who may hear this, how they feel about this.
Mm-hmm.
But you minister to me for sure. But I entered into your life being a priest in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning someone who is representing, conveying, and sharing the love of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
and as a symbol and a leader to uh, consistently walk in that assignment to sow into you in that type of way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the romance and the, you know, lovey-dovey, huggy-kissy was added to that.
Right.
But my first responsibility and began and has always been, to be a priest in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't abandon that. You know what I mean? It would take a lot for
Mm-hmm.
me to abandon that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like especially as a jewel, to give to the women out there, well, you want a man that feels like that.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
he's called to be a priest to you as a wife and a priest in your home, because that
Mm-hmm.
same mandate is going to spill down to
To
your
your kids.
kids too,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything that he's accountable
Mm-hmm.
to, right? And so I still have that conviction till
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And if we tie this into, just the whole premise of para too, is about, well, that's an extension of my life of faith.
Yeah.
How my life of faith, how your life of faith permeates into family,
Yeah.
because faith is about generations and legacy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Faith is really, we are an extension of the legacy of God. We are sons and daughters of God,
Right.
whom he gave everything he had
Mm-hmm.
for his children,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Gave his best for his children because
Mm-hmm.
he was determined to not allow broken relationship with his children, right?
Right.
And so the whole story is about inheritance and legacy
Yep.
and family,
Yep.
which is why God began with family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's critical that as we select our family and
Mm-hmm.
decide who we're going to make that type of connection with, we lead with God.
Yeah.
We lead with faith,
Yep.
We
Yep.
lead with his wisdom, his knowledge, his intuition, his guidance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As we engage and embark, with people on a journey to be connected together,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, I guess that's the episode, man. I mean, we were glad to be able to kind of share our story. I mean, there's much more to it. There's a lot more
Oh my
color to
God.
it, and
So
I'm sure
much
we'll be
more.
able to, share many of our stories and
Mm-hmm.
many of our
Yeah.
little anecdotes.
15
But
years is a long time.
yeah, we were glad to share kind of who we are, where we come from, and how we
Yeah.
came together,
Mm-hmm.
and how us being a family even informs this
Mm-hmm.
and what it is, we intend to share in para, right?
Yeah.
And on this platform, right? And man, hopefully it was some jewels dropped here, you know. And we wanna get your feedback and Get your sentiments, man. We want to know. Do you think Candace was plotting on me the whole time? She saw the glow on me. She saw that anointing. She said, "Oh, I got to have me a man of God." Right? Do you think I was plotting on her? You think I was out here assassin? Let us know. Let us know in the comments or something,
That is
right?
funny. That's so funny.
What you want to end with, babe?
I'm glad we had this conversation. It actually makes me think about things. Once you get in life and you start, just being in a rhythm, you can kind of forget about some things. Or so for me, I'm like, man, we came to have this conversation just to share, our story. But
Mm-hmm.
it is. I feel like I'm in another personal, pivotal season of my life and my walk with God, and having this conversation and reconnecting to the foundations of what brought us together in a way that I'm really, really kind of revisiting and rethinking about it is it's a blessing, and it just makes
Yeah.
me grateful. So
Yeah, for sure. And of course, we know all the things that we feel that we know our collective purposes and what we're setting out to fulfill and manifest, para being a part of that, right?
right,
And so being reminded of the origin
that's right.
stories of it highlights that it wasn't even of our own doing,
Nope.
right? So it encourages you even more like, oh man, look how far we've come. Look how far or how much we now understand why we were brought together and all the purpose that's attached to it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it springs up gratefulness. Say, oh man, I see all the purpose of it and all the goodness of God, in the process. And that's what we want for each and every person that's watching, man. Let God lead you in your relationship building because it's an integral part to your purpose and all things that pertains to life and godliness, man, because we want a whole life, right? We want a whole and full life.
Yes.
All right, man, if you have not hit that subscribe button, or decided to follow, come on, man, tap in with us, man. We got more stories for you, all right? All right, Patricia. Be blessed.
Be blessed.
We gonna holler.
Bye, y'all.